Now, I have been watching you all for quite some time now, sitting here in my studio, observing how many of you keep falling into the same trap, being too nice to men. And I mean that special kind of nice that comes from fear, from needing approval, from thinking that's what you're supposed to do. Let me tell you something that might shake you to your core. Being nice isn't the same as being authentic. Being nice isn't the same as being powerful. And most importantly, being nice isn't going to get you what you really want in life. Now, I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself as a mighty oak tree. When a storm comes, does the oak tree apologize for taking up space? Does it try to bend itself into shapes that please others? Does it shrink? To make the other trees feel more comfortable? No, it stands firm, rooted in its own nature. You see, there's this fascinating thing happening in our society. We've confused being nice with being valuable. We've mixed up pleasing others with earning respect. And let me tell you, that's a recipe for disaster. People have spent decades observing human behavior, and here's what I've noticed. When you're too nice to men, you're actually telling them something very specific. You're saying, I don't believe I have inherent value, so I'm going to try to earn it through constant agreeability. But here's the truth that nobody wants to talk about. Men don't respect what comes too easily. They don't value what constantly bends to their will. Think about it. Do you respect a doormat? Do you admire it? No, you walk all over it. Now, I'm not suggesting you become unkind. That's not what this is about. What I'm talking about is something much more profound. I'm talking about becoming real, authentically, unapologetically real. And when you stop being nice and start being real, something magical happens. You begin to emit a different kind of energy. It's like switching from artificial sweetener to raw honey. Both are sweet, but one has depth, complexity, and actual nutritional value. Let me share something with you that I've observed over the years. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, every time you laugh at a joke that isn't funny, every time you make yourself small to make someone else feel big, you're not just affecting that moment. You're programming your entire nervous system to believe that your truth isn't valuable. Think about that for a moment. Really let it sink in. Every fake smile, every forced agreement, every suppressed opinion, it's all getting stored in your body, creating a pattern of self-betrayal. But here's where it gets interesting. When you stop being nice and start being real, you might think men will like you less. But the opposite happens. They become magnetically drawn to your authenticity. Why? Because authenticity is rare, it's powerful, it's irresistible. I want you to try something right now. Think about the last time you were nice, when you didn't want to be. Feel that sensation in your body, that tightness in your chest, that knot in your stomach. That's your internal wisdom telling you something isn't right. Now imagine if instead of being nice, you were true. Imagine if instead of smiling and nodding, you said what you really thought. Imagine if instead of making yourself smaller, you allowed yourself to expand into your full magnificence. You know what fascinates me? The way water behaves. When you try to grasp it too tightly, it slips right through your fingers. But when you allow it to flow naturally, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in nature. Your authentic power works exactly the same way. Let me tell you about something I've observed in the natural world. Have you ever watched a lioness? She doesn't waste energy trying to be nice. She doesn't apologize for her hunger. She doesn't minimize her power to make the gazelles feel more comfortable. She simply is who she is, and that's precisely why she commands respect. But here's what most people don't understand about power. It's not something you get by controlling others. It's something you access by releasing control. When you stop trying to manipulate how men perceive you, when you stop crafting yourself into what you think they want, you tap into something far more potent than niceness. I've watched countless women transform when they grasp this truth. It's like watching a butterfly emerge. From its chrysalis, the chrysalis of niceness, of pleasing, of constant accommodation. It's comfortable, but it's also a prison. Consider this, every time you dim your light to make someone else comfortable, you're not just doing yourself a disservice. You're actually depriving the world of your unique essence. You're withholding your gift from the universe. Now, let's talk about something that might make you uncomfortable. Have you noticed how being nice often comes from a place of fear? Fear of rejection, fear of confrontation, fear of being alone. But here's the paradox. By acting from fear, you actually attract exactly what you're afraid of. Think about the times you've been nice to a man when you really wanted to express anger, disappointment, or disagreement. What happened to that unexpressed energy? It didn't disappear. Energy never disappears, it just transforms. It turned into resentment, into passive aggression, into a subtle but persistent sense of powerlessness. I've noticed something remarkable in my observations. When a woman stops being nice and starts being real, men initially might seem unsettled. They might even pull away, but watch what happens next. They come back. And when they come back, it's different. There's a new respect, a new fascination, a new desire to truly know her. Here's a truth that might shake you. Men can sense when you're being nice out of fear. They can feel when your kindness is a mask for insecurity. It's like trying to pass off cubic zirconia as a diamond. It might look similar, but it doesn't have the same intrinsic value. Let me share something profound with you. The universe responds not to what you do, but to who you are being when you do it. When you're being nice from a place of fear or need, you're actually broadcasting to the universe that you're someone who needs to earn love through pleasing others. Consider the oak tree again. It doesn't negotiate with the wind about which way to bend. It doesn't try to convince the seasons to change their course. It simply stands in its truth. And that unwavering authenticity is what makes it magnificent. I've watched how the modern world has created this bizarre paradox. We're more connected than ever through technology, yet more disconnected from our authentic selves. We carefully curate our images, filter our responses, polish our personas until they shine. But with what result? Let me tell you what happens in your body when you're being nice instead of authentic. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your shoulders tense. Your voice shifts to a higher pitch. Your entire nervous system goes into a subtle state of alert. You're literally in a mild fight or flight response, all while smiling and nodding. Here's something fascinating I've observed. When you stop being nice to men, you start being kind to yourself. And that self-kindness has a magnetic quality that's completely different from the energy of niceness. It's like the difference between a plastic flower and a real one. They might look similar from a distance, but up close, there's no comparison. Think about the last time you felt truly powerful. I bet it wasn't when you were being nice. It was probably when you were completely absorbed in something you loved, when you forgot to monitor yourself, when you were simply being rather than trying to be. I've noticed that women often confuse being nice with being valuable. But value isn't created through niceness, it's revealed through authenticity. When you stop trying to be nice and start being real, you'll find that your value was there all along, waiting to be discovered. Here's a truth that might disturb you. Every time you choose being nice over being authentic, you're essentially telling the universe that your truth isn't worth expressing. You're choosing temporary comfort over lasting power. You're trading your birthright of authenticity for a bowl of porridge called approval. Consider how a mountain stream flows. It doesn't ask permission to be powerful. It doesn't apologize for the space it takes up. It simply moves with its natural force and everything else adjusts around it. That's the kind of power I'm talking about. Let me share something about energy that most people don't understand. When you're being nice instead of authentic, you're creating a split in your energy field. Part of you is presenting this pleasant exterior, while another part is screaming in silence. This split creates a leak in your power, like a hole in a bucket carrying water. So watch how nature operates. A rose doesn't apologize for its thorns. The ocean doesn't apologize for its depth. The fire doesn't apologize for its heat. Yet somehow we've convinced ourselves that our natural power needs to be wrapped in the soft padding of niceness. I've observed something remarkable about transformation when a caterpillar enters its chrysalis. It literally dissolves before becoming a butterfly. That's what happens when you stop being nice. There's a period of dissolution where everything you thought you knew about relating to men breaks down. Let me tell you about a pattern I've noticed. When women first stop being nice, they often swing to the opposite extreme, becoming harsh or defensive. But that's not what I'm advocating. I'm talking about something far more subtle and powerful, being absolutely true to your own nature. Think about how the moon affects the tides. It doesn't try to control them. It doesn't ask permission to exert its influence. It simply is. And through being what it is, it creates profound movement in the waters of Earth. That's the kind of influence I'm talking about. Here's something that might shake your understanding. When you're being nice to men, you're actually being cruel to yourself. You're sacrificing your truth, your power, your authentic expression on the altar of approval. And the tragic irony is that this sacrifice doesn't even get you what you want. I've watched countless interactions where women dim their light, soften their edges, reduce their presence, all in the name of being nice. But here's what's fascinating. The men in their lives don't actually want this diminished version. They might think they do, but deep down, they're longing for something real. Consider this. Every time you choose niceness over authenticity, you're not just affecting yourself. You're contributing to a collective pattern that keeps all women small. You're reinforcing the idea that female power needs to be packaged in pleasing wrapping paper. Let me share something about energy that most people miss. When you're being nice instead of real, you're actually broadcasting confusion into the universe. Your words say one thing, your energy says another, and this misalignment creates chaos in your relationships. Think about the way a tree grows. It doesn't grow according to anyone else's plan. It doesn't try to please the other trees. It simply follows its own internal blueprint, reaching toward the light in its own unique way. That's the kind of natural, organic power I'm talking about. Look at how lightning moves through the sky. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't apologize for its brilliance. It simply follows the path of least resistance, expressing its pure raw power. That's what happens when you stop being nice and start being real. I've observed something fascinating about personal power. It's like an underground spring. The more you try to force it, the more it retreats. But when you remove the obstacles, primarily the need to be nice, it flows naturally, abundantly, effortlessly. Consider what happens in nature when there's pressure to conform. The most resilient species aren't the ones that adapt by becoming weaker, they're the ones that develop their unique strengths. Your authenticity is your evolutionary advantage. Here's a truth that might unsettle you. Every time you choose to be nice instead of authentic, you're not just suppressing yourself. You're actually lying to the men in your life. You're presenting a filtered, diluted version of yourself and expecting real connection in return. I've noticed how women often use niceness as a shield. It feels safer than being real, doesn't it? But here's the paradox. This shield that you think is protecting you is actually preventing you from experiencing genuine connection. Think about what happens when you hold your breath underwater. The longer you hold it, the more desperate you become for air. That's what happens when you hold back your truth in the name of being nice. You're essentially holding your breath emotionally. Let me share something about energy that most people overlook. When you're being nice instead of authentic, you create a subtle vibration of resentment. This resentment acts like static in your energy field, distorting all your interactions. Consider how a diamond is formed. It doesn't become precious by trying to please the surrounding rocks. It becomes precious through embracing the pressure, through remaining true to its nature under intense conditions. That's how authentic power is developed. I've watched women transform when they grasp this truth. The need to be nice is often a learned response to fear. But fear is not your natural state. Your natural state is power, pure, unfiltered, unapologetic power. In 1987, psychologist Bill Sterling said, "Here's something profound about relationships. When you stop being nice and start being real, you create space for others to do the same. Your authenticity becomes permission for others to drop their masks." Let me share something I've observed about the waves crashing against the shore. They don't hesitate to express their full force, yet they create the most beautiful music. Think about what happens when you plant a seed too deep in the soil. It struggles more than necessary to reach the surface. That's what you're doing when you bury your authentic self under layers of niceness. You're making your own emergence more difficult than it needs to be. I've noticed something remarkable about transformation. When women first stop being nice, there's often a period of chaos. Relationships shift, people react, the familiar patterns dissolve, but this chaos isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that something's finally right. Consider the way fire transforms everything it touches. It doesn't ask if the wood wants to become ash. It doesn't apologize for its transformative power. It simply expresses its nature fully, and in doing so, creates profound change. Here's a truth that might challenge you. Your need to be nice to men is often a sophisticated form of manipulation. You're trying to control their responses, their perceptions, their behavior, but true power doesn't need to control. It simply needs to be. I've watched countless women struggle with this transition. They say, "But if I stop being nice, won't I end up alone?" Let me tell you something profound. You're already alone when you're being nice instead of real. You're alone inside your mask of pleasantness. Think about what happens when water is confined in a space that's too small. The pressure builds until something has to give. That's what happens to your authentic power when you try to contain it within the narrow constraints of niceness. Let me share something about energy that few understand. When you're being nice instead of authentic, you're creating a form of energetic debt. Every fake smile, every suppressed truth, every swallowed word, they all have to be paid for eventually. Consider how a wild animal moves through its territory. It doesn't second-guess its right to exist. It doesn't apologize for taking up space. It doesn't try to make other creatures comfortable with its presence. It simply is what it is, fully and completely. I've observed that the need to be nice often comes from a deep misunderstanding about power. True power isn't about controlling others. It's about being so completely yourself that others are transformed by your presence. Look at how the sun rises each morning. It doesn't peer over the horizon tentatively, asking if it's okay to shine. It blazes forth in its full glory and the world awakens in response. That's what happens when you finally claim your authentic power. Here's the ultimate truth I've been leading you toward. The opposite of nice isn't mean, it's real. When you stop being nice to men, you're not becoming cruel or harsh, you're simply becoming true. And truth, pure truth, has a power that niceness can never touch. Consider this final paradox. By releasing the need to be nice, you actually become more attractive, more magnetic, more deeply appealing than ever before, because authenticity has a resonance that artificial pleasantness can never match. I've watched this transformation enough times to know its pattern. First comes the fear, then the resistance, then the small experiment with truth, and finally, the full blooming of authentic power. It's like watching a star being born. Think about what happens when you finally exhale after holding your breath. There's a moment of complete relief, of return to natural function. That's what it feels like when you stop holding back your power in the name of being nice. There's your invitation to power. Stop apologizing for your strength. Stop diluting your truth. Stop filtering your fire. Stop cushioning your power. Stop being nice and start being real. Remember, the world doesn't need your niceness. The world needs your power. The men in your life don't need your carefully constructed pleasantness. They need your raw, real, unfiltered truth. Your power is not something you need to earn. It's not something you need to prove. It's not something you need to justify. It's your birthright. It's your nature. It's who you are. When you stop trying to be what others want, the time for being nice is over. The time for being real has come. The resonant tones fade to silence. Take this moment right now. Feel the difference between who you've been and who you truly are. The gap between those two is where your power lives. The choice is yours now. You can continue being nice, safe, small. Or you can embrace your authentic power and watch how the world rearranges itself around your truth. What will you choose? Deep silence.